Hey guys, it's Marcus from Veritas Immigration Law. I wanted to talk about a quick and kind of interesting topic that came up at our law firm today. It has to do with a concept within immigration law known as automatic visa revalidation. So I just want to talk really briefly about what that is and how it might apply to, or how it's going to apply to somebody who's in the United States under E2 status. So if you don't know what automatic visa revalidation is, I want to just briefly explain it. It's kind of an outlier concept within the immigration laws. Not a lot of people know about it. I think most attorneys know about it, but in my experience, a lot of clients have no clue what this is. And it can be really important if you're in the situation that I'm about to describe. It's one of those things that could really save you a lot of trouble with your visa and getting back into the United States after departing. So the way it works is if you come into the United States with a visa and you've been in the United States for a while and your visa has expired, but your I-94 is still current, like your I-94 has not expired, so you're still legally, lawfully in the United States. For people who are in that situation, if they depart the United States to Canada or Mexico for just a brief trip, 30 days or less, those people are allowed to re-enter the United States with an expired visa as long as they have their I-94. And for most people in this situation, it's usually going to be a student like an F1 or an exchange student like a J1, because it just kind of makes the most sense that they would be in that situation where their visa has expired, but they're still in status, like they're still studying and they're still going to school. It would make sense that they'd be in that situation because they're in the US for a long time studying, going to school. Okay, so if you're in that situation, you depart the United States for a brief amount of time and then re-enter with if you're a student, you'd have your I-20 and your I-94 that would show that you are still in status here in the United States. The border officers should automatically revalidate your visa, so it would just extend it up until that time, and then in that moment, you would just be readmitted without having a current visa, okay? That is how visa revalidation works at the port of entry. Okay, so this came up not with a student, but with a gentleman who's on an E2 visa. Okay, so this gentleman came into the United States on a B visa. We did a change of status to E2, and the question came up if he departed the United States to Mexico for a brief trip, even though his B1, B2 visitor visa had expired, and he had a little bit less than 2 years on his I-797, his E2 status. So his I-94 was still valid. If he departed and then came back within the 30 days, would that extend his I-94 an additional 2 years? And that's an interesting question, but the answer is no, okay? So I do think that automatic visa revalidation would apply in that situation, even though the regulations are written kind of towards F1 and J1 students. It does, if you read the language of the regulation, it's broadly applicable to non-immigrant visa holders. Okay, so if your non-immigrant visa has expired, you depart the United States for that short amount of time, and you re-enter with a valid I-94. If you're in E2 status, I do think automatic visa revalidation would apply. But it's important to note that you wouldn't automatically get an additional 2 years onto your visa, right? So if you just leave, you go down to Mexico for a day trip and then return, I do not think the officers, or I can basically assure you that if you re-entered the United States through this process, that you would not get an additional 2 years onto your I-94. You would just be readmitted into the United States for whatever the duration of time is on your current I-94, okay? So maybe that sounded kind of weird, so I want to say it again. If you are in the United States on an E2, or you're in the United States with E2 status, okay? You did a change of status. If you depart the United States to Canada or Mexico, and the trip is under 30 days, if you try to re-enter the United States with your expired visa and your unexpired I-94, okay, your E2 unexpired I-94, I do think automatic visa revalidation would kick in to readmit you into the United States, but you would not automatically get 2 more years onto your I-94. You wouldn't get like a fresh start on your E2 status. You would only be readmitted for whatever the duration of time is that's left on your E2 status, so on your approval notice for your change of status, okay, whatever that date is. In this gentleman's case, it was a little bit less than 2 years. So you would just be readmitted back into whatever approval for the extension or the change of status that you originally had, okay? So that is the conclusion that we came to in this gentleman's case. I'll be honest with you, this isn't something that I advise people to do, and it's not something that I've tried before, but this is how I believe the situation would be handled at the border. And I do think that's what the consequence would be of re-entering again, okay? You would just get put back into your original status for whatever that was approved for before you left. If you guys have any comments or questions, please put them in the comment section below. I'd be curious to know if anybody's had experience with this. But I do think this is how it would get handled upon re-entry with the port of entry.